Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you have had a lovely January break. I have, although I seem to have picked up a horrible throat infection. So apologies if I sound a little bit weird in this video, but that's probably the reason. So before we get into the topic of today's video, I just wanted to quickly announce that the Perrys have finally released their plastic Polish multi-part infantry. It comes in 2 boxes, which is the normal way they're doing things these days. One of marching with a couple of sprues thrown in for skirmishers, or a skirmishing set with a couple of sprues thrown in for marchers as well. I'm not really sure what I feel about this approach, but it's the one that they're clearly doing, so fair enough. If you're interested in a Duchy of Warsaw army, or perhaps a small adjunct force, if you've already got a French army, then these are absolutely perfect go-tos. Fortunately for me, I'm rather immune to their charms, as I have 2 brigades of Polish infantry in my cellar. I've not even opened the box for them yet. But there we go. So those are the plastic poles. I should have put some pictures up so you can have a look at those. The artwork, as always, absolutely fantastic. And even if I don't pick up the models, I will be checking out my local store, Wargaming Emporium, because they often sell the booklets that come inside them. They sell them separately for 50p or whatever, so it's worth it for the flags, and also they're always full of really interesting detail as well. So while I have been away, I have been working hard on my armies for Adepticon. My Warmaster Dark Elves are pretty much done. They're about 80% of the way there. I was hoping there'd be more than that, but they're about 80%. And the epic Armageddon stuff is, well, I've just started it, but I don't think that's going to take so long. It's Imperial Guard, and I'm just going to do it with a fairly simple colour scheme. What I have also been working on is finalising the thing that we are going to go through today, and I've been talking to a couple of other guys in order to put in place what I want to talk about. And that is that I am incredibly proud to present that on June the 22nd and 23rd, at the Boards and Swords gaming shop in Derby, Napoleonic Wargaming will host the first, to my knowledge, Black Powder Weekender event. Now, Ian, one of the owners of Boards and Swords, you may know him from the Plastic Crack podcast. If you've not given that a listen to, it's very good. I can recommend it. He announced it on Tuesday. So I thought I'd make the announcement here today, and we'll quickly look through the pack and see the kind of things that not necessarily you can expect from this event, but it also shows an approach that I think Black Powder can have to the hobby as well. When I went to the Warlord Open Day, Rick Priestley almost laughingly said, "I don't think anyone could run a tournament using Black Powder." And I was sat in the audience with a slight chuckle to myself. Now, he was true to one extent, and it's something that I want to lay out right from the beginning to set out at point number 1, and I mentioned it a couple of times in the pack. Incidentally, I have linked the pack in the video description down below, so you can click on that and download it for yourself. That it's not a tournament pack because the event Under Eagles to Glory is not a tournament. It is, I'll say it again, it is not a tournament. We'll get into it a bit later on, but there are some prizes available for the event. None of them are for winning the biggest number of games or winning by the highest margin. Actually, winning games will not win you any prizes in this event. It is not a tournament. It is a weekender event. So there's very little point in, going through the rules and really fine-tuning them for the minutiae of, if I shave these 2 points here, I can get this extra filthy upgrade. There's no point in any of that because there is no prizes for actually getting the highest number of wins at the event. Now, that may seem a bit silly to some, particularly the more competitively minded people out there, but this isn't supposed to be a competitive weekend. What it's supposed to be is it's supposed to be a bunch of guys and gals getting together to play some games. Now, I think particularly with historical wargaming, and Napoleonics specifically, it can often be quite a solitary pursuit. You build these armies, and you don't really have anyone to play against. That certainly was my experience for the first few years. And even now, I go regularly to a club. There's not that many people who are interested in playing 28mm Napoleonics. So sometimes it can be difficult to get games together. This is the perfect example for you to come to Derby, have 4 games, and that may be the only 4 games you've played all year. It might be the only 4 games you've ever played. But at least it's getting those troops out on the table, and it's us all getting together with people who are like-minded and as enthusiastic about Napoleonic Wargaming, throwing some dice and having fun. That is the point of the event. And that's why there's no prizes for, quote, winning the games. So I've had the front page of the pack up while I've been seriously emphasising that this is not a tournament. And we go through to the first page, and this is where we start getting into some details. Now, it is going to be 28mm. I did think about doing an epic one, and that is a potential for the future, particularly as the boards are 6 foot by 4 foot. So because of that, we're going to reduce all the ranges for everything by a third. So an infantry unit can normally march 12, it'll only be able to march 8. Its musket will have a range of 12, and so on and so forth. The foreshortening does change things a little bit, but hopefully not too much, and it means that you're not going to be over the table in one turn. That's the hope anyway. Now, one thing that I have been asked, which I thought I'd put in the pack and I haven't, is timings. We're going to allow about 3 hours per game, but that sounds like a lot of time. It's really not. And that's just in order so we can get 2 games in per day. So we'll start about 10 o'clock, 10 till 1 will be game 1, 1 till 2 will be lunch, then 2 till 5, or maybe 5:30 will be game 3. So, game 2 and 4. The supplements will be in use, so that is Army Triumphant 1 and 2, and Clash of Eagles. The boys at the Chelmsford Gaming Bunker have put together a list of all the rules that appear in the supplements. I've put them all in one place, so I will also try and link in the description to that as well. But if there's any, if you're unsure if something from Clash of Eagles doesn't interact well with something out of Albion Triumphant, then we will be using Clash of Eagles because that's the most up-to-date book. Now, between those 3 supplements, they cover most of the arms of the Napoleonic period. Oh, I should say as well, I am also allowing the supplement I made for the Ottoman Empire and for the Americans from the War of 1812 as well. So they will both be allowed. However, I haven't done points values for those armies yet. So if you do want to take one of those armies, drop me an email or drop a comment on here, and I'll look at putting some points together for them. But I'm only going to do that if you've bought a ticket. I'm not just going to waste my time for some rando YouTube comment. Well, it wouldn't be wasting my time, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. So moving on to the next page. In fact, this is where we talk about the armies that we can use. So those are the most of the armies that you can have. If there's something that you want to use that doesn't have rules in a supplement yet, so the examples I've used is 1806 Prussians. If you want to use those, again, drop me a line and we'll work out something between us. I'm sure it's not beyond the wit of man that we can put something together. So a brief list at the bottom of the equipment that you need to bring. That's absolutely fine. And then we get on to the next page. Now, this is one of the big things with this event, is it's not going to be using historical orders of battle. It is going to be using the point system that is in the back of the supplements. And for this, we're going to be taking armies of 600 points. Now, this is one of the things that's taken me the longest to pin down, really, is how big an army is what's the size of an army that you can get a good mix of troops in that's not going to take absolutely forever and isn't going to be too skewed one way or the other. And I found with 600 points, you can normally get 2 brigades of infantry, a brigade of cavalry, and some artillery in. Now, if you're taking the French Old Guard, well, maybe you can't. But for most armies, particularly my army that I've popped in the example here, this is an example Italian army, led by the infamous Joachim von Wellington. and that's just an example of how you can put an army together there. I've also said there's an allowance of plus or minus. Not plus or minus. There's an allowance of you can be 10% of the points under, so you can effectively have 540 points. That would, of course, massively disadvantage you, but it just means that if your army comes to, for argument's sake, I don't know, 596 points or something, you don't need to worry about those last 4 points. That's absolutely fine. You cannot go over, though. 600 is a hard cap. 601 points is not, sir. You'd either have to lose an upgrade or perhaps even an entire unit. Now, the next page is quite weirdy. There's a shot of my Russians there. I'm quite pleased with that photograph, actually. But it's got a really important part in it, I think, in the middle section. And that is that you can use units to represent other units as long as they're sort of comparable. So, for argument's sake, you wouldn't be able to use French line infantry to represent Old Guard, because they're quite different. But you could use French line infantry in bicorns to represent the same unit in 1815 army list. That's absolutely fine. Something else you could do as well is you could say, well, I've got this unit of, for argument's sake, Dutch Guard that I want to use. Well, you could count those probably as middle guard in an 1815 list. And a really good example of that was if you wanted to have an early or mid-war French army, and you've painted up some Carabineers, because they're fantastic models, you could use them as dragoons, perhaps dragoons with tough fighter that you've paid the extra points for, or something like that. Just going back to the War Master army that I'm making, I've got to take 4 units of spearmen, so I've taken 3 units of spearmen, I've given 1 a magic banner, and I've used those models of the Black Guard of, is it Zarnagrun? No, Zarnagrun's Cast Dwarves, isn't it? But I've used those as Black Guard, so that's how I can differentiate. They're the guys with the magic banner. And similarly, say you were taking advantage of the new plastic Perry Polish to try saying that 10 times, and you were doing a Duchy of Warsaw army, you wanted those 3 units of Krasiers. If you wanted to throw in a unit of Saxon Garde du Corps just to count as Polish Krasiers, that would be absolutely fine as well. Something else that's taken me quite a while to really nail down is the unit sizes as well. Now, if you've seen my battle reports, you'll know that I prefer units of 36 to be a standard unit for the French, but because we're using the smaller tables, then we've reduced it down to 18 to 24. Now, there is a size bracket for all of the units, except I think small artillery batteries, but everything else has got a slight bracket to it. So a medium infantry battalion is 18 to 24, and a medium cavalry unit is 7 or 8. So, and that just means that no one has to rebase, or hopefully you don't have to rebase, in order to use your army at this event. Again, if you wanted to come, but you're like, I don't want to rebase my army, drop me an email. I'm sure we can work something out. So we have a few house rules here. So these are rules that aren't necessarily in the rulebook, but ones that I think are they're perhaps in other iterations of Black Powder, or I just think they will represent better on, particularly when we're using 6 foot by 4 foot tables. So for argument's sake, you can't do 3 moves and fight, and that's to try and dissuade people from moving 3 turns with their infantry, because 36 inches on a 48-inch wide board is quite a long way. But, if you really want to, then that's absolutely fine as well. And there's just a few things that have, just to clear up any things that are a little bit obscure. The thing is with Black Powder, what makes it such a great set of rules is that there's quite a lot of room for interpretation. But when you're coming together to play with people who you've not played against before or not met before, sometimes that can lead to some difficulties, because you do things one way, other people might do it a different way. So it's just to smooth over those cultural differences, shall we say. Now, one thing that is definitely into this pack is capture the colours. That's a rule that I introduced some time ago now, and that is if you destroy a unit in combat, you can seize their colours. This is, I've put this in for a specific reason. Well, 2 reasons. One, I think it's a very characterful rule for the period. There's a lot of heroic stories around the capturing of eagles or other standards, things like that. So I think it suits the period. The other thing as well is it really gets to the core of what this event is supposed to be. It is a weekender. It is an event. It's not a tournament. It's not about, oh, well, this guy got an extra point because he captured my flag. It's about telling the story of the time this unit was like captured the eagle of this other unit, and then you go home and you perhaps model an eagle on that unit of I don't know, Russian Karazias. You convert a guy snatching the eagle, or you might have a unit filler of that Prussian standard bearer defending to the last as the Frenchman cuts him down, or whatever. The idea is that it's to create stories, and it's to turn your collection of models that you've slaved away on lovingly, but it's to get them on the table to create these stories and get this thing for themselves. So yeah, if there are standards captured, I mean, one of the things is one of the British units lost their standards. I can't remember who it was. They lost the King's Colour, and they weren't reissued the King's Colour until they got it back, which they got it back because they found it in some like second-hand pawn shop in Paris or something. But they weren't issued a King's Colour until they got the original one back. And it's the stories like this that I think that I so love about the Napoleonic period, and I want to tell in our war games. Now, I talk in the next section about the battlefields won't necessarily represent what your army is, because obviously we're going to try and set out some tables that will reflect the whole Napoleonic period. Do I think anyone's going to bring 1798 French or Ottomans? Probably not, but I'll probably do one of the tables to be a little bit like the Battle of Alexandria, was it? Where they fought in the Roman ruins. Just because it's cool. I mean, literally because of that. So there's going to be a little bit of willing suspension of disbelief there. Now, something that Ian, the chap from Plastic Crack, asked me was, will we be matching up, allies to allies, allies against French or French against Russians or whatever? And again, I've ummed and ahed about it, but the answer is no. I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to do that for two reasons. I like to explain my thoughts behind these things. I don't want to be like, oh, yes, you will do this. So if it's a bit long-winded, I do apologise. But the reasons are, the first one was it makes it a lot simpler for the TO, the tournament organiser. It makes it a lot simpler for me. If I'm honest, on the day, if I just do the draw, then it is what it is. I don't have to match people off according to their nations. It also means that if we get 8 players and 7 of them have got French and 1 of them's got British, well, it doesn't really matter. The second point is that, again, it's a weekend, it's a celebration of Napoleonic wargaming. It's not necessarily going to be hardcore, historically accurate. So, you know what, why not have those 1815 British fight those 1815 Prussians? Why not? Or those 1812 Russians against those 1809 Spanish. Yeah, it is what it is. Although if you bring in the Spanish, I think we should give you extra bonus points just for bringing the Spanish anyway. Now, speaking of Spanish, something they were they had lots of anyway, is light cavalry. And light cavalry, I wanted to give it a purpose for being in your army. I found in the games of Black Powder I've had, they're rather underwhelming. So what we've gone for here, and this is a straight rip-off, sort of, from War Master Revolutions, is scouting points. Now, the team that wins the scouting duel, they get to deploy second and go first. If they want to, they can choose who deploys first and who deploys second. And basically what it is you get a number of points for every light cavalry unit in your army. If you've not got any light cavalry, then you get less points for using dragoons and medium cavalry. And yeah, so that's it really. I've popped in some guidelines about issuing orders on the next one. As I say, with everyone coming from different areas, we'll have different ideas and cultures about how we do that. So that's just to clarify some questions there. I mentioned about judges. I will probably be judging on the day, if not playing. I'd like to play. I'm going to bring an army under Christoph Herner, my new general. But I'll come back to why go to an event at the end. Now I'm going to end with that one. But I will be judging as well. I'm not expecting there to be any like mega problems. But if there's any questions, then you can always ask me there. So I've done some missions. These are the 4 missions we're going to be playing. So the first one is Secure the Crossroads. The second one is Breakthrough Assault. The third one is Escalation. And the fourth one is Defend the Town. Now, I'll let you read through those yourself. But those are going to be the 4 missions. And again, ultimately, well, as you can see on the final page, on page 4 of the, underneath game 4, I should say, those are the prizes next to the photograph of Napoleon's command staff. The prizes that we're going to be awarding on the day are for Best Sports. Now, there will be an option to vote for your favourite opponent. Best Vignette, we'll come to the vignettes in a second. And Best Army. Now, Best Army is the army that you think looks the best. So make sure that you get your army on parade and make sure that everyone gets to see it. Now, I have said earlier on in the pack that you can use unpainted models, and that's 100% correct. If you want to use an unpainted army, then that's absolutely fine. The point is, let's get our armies on the tabletop, let's throw down, let's get some games in. However, if you can use a painted army, I think that would be a better experience for both yourself and your opponent. But if that's the difference between you coming and not coming, I'd rather you came with an unpainted army than didn't come with a still unpainted army. There's a little map of where the event's going to be. It's not a great map, I have to say. You'd be best off Googling Boards and Swords for yourself. Now, the ticket prices, we'll talk about while we're talking about the venue. The tickets have come out at £25. Now, that's for both days, and that does include like a pizza lunch on both days as well. I think it's Domino's they use, which is a shame for me because I can't eat Domino's. They give me terrible heartburn. But someone else can. Someone can have two. They can have mine. It's really unfortunate because I actually quite like Domino's. Although it did make me super popular during the lockdown because at work, Domino's would occasionally just like donate the hospital like a ton of pizzas, and I was always like, "No, that's all right. You can have mine." They're like, "Oh, are you watching your weight?" I'm like, "No, I just can't eat them." So it made me very popular handing out my pizza anyway. But no, they are very nice. It's just a personal physical reaction. It's a shame as well because their spicy meat is so nice. That's the worst one for heartburn, obviously. Anyway, so it's £25. That covers both days and pizza lunches for the 2 days as well. There's also a really good cafe just around the corner from Boards and Swords as well. Weirdly, it's in a gym. Really nice scrambled egg bagels, I do. Can recommend. Anyway, so that's the that's the end of the pack and my breakfast recommendations. But there is one, there's going to be 2 appendices, but this is Appendix A. Appendix B isn't quite ready yet. And this is the vignettes. Now, I've mentioned this a couple of times. There is no award available for Best Vignette. And basically what that is it's like we've seen an increasing number of them released by particularly the Perrys, things like the dentist scene in the camp for the British, or a Vivandier. I think Eureka do a huzzah chatting up a woman at the well. All that good stuff. So you're going to be allowed to pick one of those for free and attach it to a unit in your army. And they're going to have different effects. Now, as you can see on the table here, they're not necessarily super mega impact, but hopefully they're just a little buff that gives you a one-off. And really, all the buffs are really there for is to give you an excuse to buy a model that you perhaps wouldn't otherwise be able to justify. Now, again, if you've not got one, let me know. Don't let this be a reason for you not to come. I've got some. We've got some spares. I'm sure you can always borrow some. But as I say, there shouldn't really be anything in this pack that's a reason not to come, other than, well, I don't like the missions, or I don't like the idea of traveling to play like Napoleonic, which is absolutely fair enough. But if there's something in there that I've said, the armies have to be painted or anything like that, none of that's true. Just if there's something that's worrying you like that you'd like to come, but there's just one thing that you feel you can't, let me know, and I'm sure we can find a way around it. So I've talked a couple of reasons there not to come. Can't you tell I'm a great salesman, me? But why would you want to go to Under Eagles to Glory? Napoleonic Wargaming presents a Black Powder Weekender. Well, you should want to go, I think, because it's going to be a celebration of Napoleonics and Napoleonic Wargaming. It's a chance for a group of people to get together and do something they enjoy in a very supportive environment. Boards and Swords really do help support the hobby in general. The Plastic Crack podcast is very good. They do discounts on the stuff they sell. They're very strong with Warlord Epic stuff. They used to be really good with Malifaux, and they were the best place in the country I found for Song of Ice and Fire, back when that was still a thing. But give them a go. They're also very big on their naval games as well. They do a big naval game twice a year, one for Trafalgar, one for the 1st of June. I never managed to get to them. I might try and get to the 1st of June one this year, actually, because my holiday's fallen a bit weird this year. But anyway, that's something else. So that's the main reason to come. Is it's just a celebration of people getting together to enjoy Napoleonics. The second reason why I think that it's a really good thing to come, and this is one that I can speak from absolute personal experience, is it's a really good excuse to finish a project, or even break down your army into a project size. I've been trying to paint my Württembergers for 2 years now? 3 years? 3 years now. 2 years. I took them with me when I went to Norfolk for my birthday, and that was in 2021. So I've been painting them for at least 2.5 years now, and I just can't seem to get them finished. How long have I been painting the Royal Guard, let alone any of the cavalry or anything like that? So it's going to be a really good example. I've set to myself, Christoph Herner, the commander of my Württemberg contingent, I'm going to get 600 points of Württembergers done for that weekend. They've got to be done by the 22nd of June. There's no backsliding. There's no I could do these guys. No. The event is on the 22nd of June. That's when they've got to be done for. And by having that deadline, it can really, really help focus you and actually get you to finish a project. And I think, certainly for me, that can be a huge problem of those prevarications. I mean, at the moment, I'm looking at my painting table. I've got to do this Dark Elf army for, 5 weeks now, 6 weeks. And on my painting table, I've got a Rohan standard bearer. I've got an El Cid cavalryman. I've got a British Life Guard feeding his horse. Or he'll be a Inniskilling Dragoon Guard. I've got Henry Cavill as a Adeptus Custodi. I've got a War Master Lizardman character. So that's in addition to everything else. But because I have a deadline, then that when the fear sets in, when it gets closer, I know that I'll get everything done. So this is a really, really good example. It's a good excuse to have to get your brushes out and have to get painting. And I've also found as well that with significant others, you can say, well, look, I've got to get it done for 2 weeks' time. I'm really sorry, I can't go and spend all day shopping with you. I need to get this done. So people tend to be a little bit more understanding if they know you've got a deadline as well. So that's it. I wanted to keep it under half an hour today. It's my first one back. My throat is a bit ropey, so thank you for putting up with my croaky voice today. It's not a sexy croaky voice, this one either. It's just there. Right. So anyway, thank you very much. I hope you guys have had a good break over January. We have some, I think, interesting content coming up. Next week, we've got this event coming up. Some people might use it as an excuse to start a new army. Let's see if there's an army that's recently been released that we can get for under £250. Let's see how that goes. But thank you very much for watching, and I shall speak to you guys. Oh, just quickly before I go, I did have Facebook message yesterday. I can't remember who it was from, so apologies. Asking me when I'm going to do the live streams again. I am going to do live streams again. I normally start them when the clocks go forward, because then it's light enough in the evening that I can come home from work and get some painting done. So that's when we're looking about, whenever that is, spring forward, like April time or something like that. So it won't be for a few weeks yet. But at the moment, I'm concentrating on getting ready for Adepticon. If you are going to Adepticon, let me know. Hit me up. I did email the organisers to say, you've got to meet the creators event. I don't want to blow my trumpet, but could I be on the panel? They never even got back to me. So there you go. But we don't need them. We can have our own night with blackjack and hookers, as Bender would say. But yes, no, we won't really have hookers. Possibly blackjack. But thank you very much for listening, and I will see you guys next time.